Hey, it's Soul with another video. Today I want to talk about 5 more things I miss about the World of Warcraft. This is the second video in a series that will go on as long as WoW keeps the lights on. I'm a big fan of the World of Warcraft, but that doesn't mean that I'm without criticism, and that doesn't mean that there aren't things that I sort of long for. So let's do this. The world in WoW feels smaller than I remember it. Putting feelings over facts for a moment, I miss the world feeling large since it took a little bit longer to travel from place to place. This is a vague thing because we can draw a different narrative to make my point. It's like I'm saying I miss the days before flight, before portals were in major hubs, before it was easy to run through packs of mobs, before the Flight Master's whistle and other Hearthstone-like items. Maybe it's that there isn't a whole lot of wide open space between locations, like space that has nothing in it. You can call it an empty, maybe a desolate, barren field, so to speak. It's really a combination of everything that culminates into this general feeling. I'm a big fan of what I call the journey from point A to B to wherever. Maybe nostalgia-driven players or ones with better memory than mine can recall their experiences in these open zones, and probably more recent locales where there's just long stretches of walking. Some people like that, including me. But that slowly changed over subsequent expansions as players were called back to previously visited areas, sometimes on a daily basis. Over time, because of things like daily and world quests, the subconscious desire for the world to feel smaller and accessible took root, and it shows in WoW's world design over the years. The things we visit most often are pretty close to a flight point, quest objectives are pretty close to quest givers, and the game world itself is incredibly dense. Val'sharah is an example of this density where a Night Elf temple, a human settlement, a massive fortress, and the lair of a demigod are in pretty close proximity. Separated mostly by windy terrain, but on a map, things just look pretty busy. On top of that are the character toolkits that are available to us now, unlike before. Training a bunch of mobs solo used to be unheard of unless you were a mage, but now that's a feasible method for every spec for the sake of getting through quests and world quests a little bit faster. Driving this feeling is the new world of Argus, a broken planet that's built very differently from Azeroth. The mini-zones of Argus have a skybox that makes the horizon look bigger than Azeroth itself, only it's not. I just miss the feel of the world feeling large, and there are numerous things that have changed it over the years. The Broken Isles are a very large and packed collection of locations and scenery, but it didn't have to be packed so efficiently. Alright, so that took a while, let's move on to the next thing. I kind of sort of missed the gates that came before endgame content. Some people say raiding is easier than it used to be. I disagree, or at least that statement is a little too non-specific. I think raiding is more accessible than it used to be, thanks to having tailored difficulties and sizes, as well as the lifting of resistance requirements and attunements. But raiding is one part prep, and the other part the actual raiding. Imagine that if at the end of Molten Core, after all the carrying of players for rep and keys and fire resist gear and whatnot, players encountered the mythic Firelands version of Ragnaros. I think players of those days would be quite surprised with a sudden spike in complexity. Yesterday's raiding was about resource gathering, strict gates, and acquiring the gear needed to not get one-shot by certain mechanics. Today's raiding lets you walk right in if you wanted to, with a marginalized requirement of resource gathering, and gear requirements are about making sure that your throughput is at an adequate level, or you all die. There are some differences and similarities to that nuance, but I kind of don't miss those gates. I would like to see the pendulum find a happy spot in that regard. Maybe if there was some sort of attunement, but it was more like a way to push players into a few dungeons for the sake of setting the narrative for an upcoming raid, but that doesn't seem so great either. The overall feeling that I'm shooting for is to just make walking into the raid feel like a small accomplishment into itself, and that's been lost. I miss when gear with purple text on it felt like this prestigious thing. Yeah, I know, prestige, original thought, but just bear with me, okay? Part of WoW's itemization revolves around a color system to differentiate what's good and what's whatever. Trash, common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and so on. But it doesn't take a lot of thought to realize that the color of gear has more to do with what an item disenchants into, rather than the power or the prestige or the actual rarity of it. Of course, this is because 12 years ago, there weren't a lot of items to compare between. Item level wasn't visible, there weren't multiple difficulties of dungeons or raids, so let me get my personal thought out there regarding prestige. Prestige isn't about WoW popping an achievement on your screen, it's more like the mutual respect players give each other when acknowledging these accomplishments. Unfortunately, I'm skeptical that this mutual respect is what it used to be, because more than anything, this game is old, you know? We've killed a lot of dragons since Onyxia, and have quite a collection of gear at our fingertips to show off. In the end, purple is just purple, but for a newer player it might be a little confusing that there are like 50 shades of purple. Ragefinder, Heroic, Warforged, Relinquished, Dauntless, Seasoned, Something Elite, Time Warped, Mythic 15, Titanforged, like, come on. It's just a color, but it's totally lost its meaning. So either just screw it with assigning items colors because there are already all these convenient labels, or make the colors mean a little more than nothing. I miss quests that are based on my race. Sadly, race-based quests are only really something encountered in the early leveling experience of WoW. They lightly cover the overarching motivations of the races, like how gnomes wanted to liberate Gnomeregan, or blood elves looking for a fix, the Forsaken trying to prolong their survivability of their race, and humans doing whatever it is that they do. I'm probably right in saying that pushing the idea of giving every race their own development or update sort of questline simultaneously might sound cool from the player side of things, but for Blizzard this probably wouldn't gain a lot of traction, and here's why. In World of Warcraft Legion, Blizzard went through the daunting task of creating questlines for each of the 30+ specializations, and a lengthy campaign for the 12 classes at the time. The overall reaction to this effort was influenced by the fact that not all players play all specializations and classes, so it was hard for people outside the development and coverage of the game to tell just how much unique content there was. So the same would go for a race-based questline or a campaign. It would be totally awesome to see new developments with the races to help feel like things are advancing with our people. But if Blizzard were to say that advancing a race's storyline has to feel right in the context of the expansion and everything else it could influence, well, I wouldn't be able to argue that. So instead, we've got what we got. It's about our faction, or our planet, or all of existence. This escalation of story is why it's not likely we'll see race-based questlines. There's just too much focus on this greater story. Little things like our racial differences feel really small when there's a green planet staring at you, for Azeroth and all that. Which leads me to my last thing. I miss having my character be a big nobody. Before being a commander or the High Lord of the Silver Hand, I'm just the paladin with an eccentric sense of fashion. My character has accomplished a lot, and that can't be erased, but I was pretty put off when Izan Hesychassus said in a recent interview that we're becoming a peer to the likes of Thrall and Jaina and Varian. Well, you know what? Guess what? Thrall walked away from his duties, Jaina disappeared, and Varian shattered into a lot of pieces. So hey, maybe he was foreshadowing there. Every hero, every champion has got to have those moments where they're brought down a peg. I'm not talking about Arthas' fall from grace to go turncoat and get killed sort of thing, but what if our faction leaders approach us and say, hey you, we need you to do something totally awful to the other faction, like kill their babies, because you're our champion. Oh heck no, we got principles too, and we walk away. Screw the class order and screw our faction too. I want to log into a new expansion where the intro is our character running off to get away from this crazy story because they chose to close that chapter and try to move on. If someone approached my character to ask, hey, are you such and such who helped save the world time and time again? I want my character to be like, yeah, so what if I am? Leave me the fuck alone, or tell me to kill some boars, cause you know what? I've seen some shit. And I could do with a break from that, And that might work, because the world might not let our champions forget what we've done. But that doesn't mean there can't be a story of them trying to get away from it. So that's the list. Like and share cause you are a great person. Sub for more, or just share your thoughts, and stay breezy.